Chanter tout le soir, c'est nécessaire. Good evening. As promised, we are back and we are on. Live chat is always open. We are on Disarticulations 5, but we are going to take a bit of a step backwards because apparently... there's some kind of problem with Marx, and I got a comment, and I think I mentioned yesterday from a person I believe and still believe to be a very value contributor to this podcast, but apparently I made him quite angry. But as I stated, I did not really understand the nature of his post. And he kindly invited me to another internet site, and I watched the beginning, and they started again with this whole thing of the grandeur of Marx being the last opera or work of Gilles Deleuze. So, in the end, I don't want to get into fights or firefights or opinion wars about any of this or anything, but I'm going to try and take kind of like a positive, I hope, a positive detour here. And in the end, and the whole point of this podcast is that this is up to you. Who am I? I'm no one. I can just give you information that I picked up of over 30 years of studying and writing about Deleuze and Guattari. And maybe I can give you something which is useful. If that is not useful, do not use it. And by all means, tell me I am wrong. And I have absolutely no problems with this. The whole point of this podcast would be that it can kind of be something open. And if you want to contest me, absolutely, 100%. I mean, you will have space here. I promise that to you, and things should be transparent. So... let me dig up the comment because it was a little bit mean, I think, but that's the world of social media and YouTube. Oh my God. Let me see if I can find that. Here we're on Mac again. Oh, so we're going to go off. I'm not even going to defend myself because, guys, in the end, if I believe, and you can contradict me, Gilles Deleuze never did a debate in his entire life because he knew it's a waste of time. It's an opinion. He always said that, discourse is like cows that ruminate, chew. God, like this. We go, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm going to take this, you're wrong, you're right. And I kind of agree with that. I mean... you communicate through other ways, not, saying you're right, you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong, you're right. It's done in other means. It's done between being friends of the concept, etc., etc. So, but this is completely transparent, and I repeat that this is the message I got from maybe listening to Joe Rogan or Reza Giorgiani, and simpling for Russia, no comment there, is much worse case of total ignorance and intellectual laziness. So I am being accused of being intellectually lazy for the fact that occasionally I watch Joe Rogan. I listened to one podcast of Reza Giorgiani and spoke of it very briefly, knowing absolutely zero about him, and also simpling for Russia. So immediately that means that I'm intellectually lazy. Okay. I'm not going to touch the Russia issue because I've been there so many times. You can't touch that. I mean, there's no possibility today of any kind of rational discussions. So, I'm not going to go there. I apologize to anyone for ever having spoken about Russia, and I will do my best to avoid it, because, you're just going to get into trouble. Okay, that's fine. Just a little bit of defense. Yes, I am absolutely intellectually lazy. You are 100% right. I am not. I don't believe that philosophers sit there until 4 a.m. With a tie. And no, you have to go out there, live, and do things. Huh? I just spent most of the summer in South America, in Cuba, in Venezuela, in Colombia, and no, because you go out and you live. No, how can you, whatever? But okay, I am totally intellectually lazy because I watch Joe Rogan, but Joe Rogan. I want to be open and transparent. Joe Rogan, I'm not an avid follower of Joe Rogan, but occasionally I watch, I can't even remember the names, Graham Hancock, or, what's the other guy? Anyway, I watch those podcasts that are more centered on archaeology, and I enjoy that because I think Graham Hancock is a questionable figure. He's heretical. He's just out there to make money. It's Randall Carlson. That's the name of the other guy. Who can be kind of a little bit strange if you go all the way there. But these are kind of heretical archaeologists, that are really putting into question a kind of orthodoxy in archaeology, and they may be absolutely wrong. But bit by bit, this whole thing about the Younger Dryas period, when the Earth was hit by massive catastrophes, and explosions, and continents were breaking, and water was flowing everywhere. They do have a good deal of empirical evidence. Am I an archaeologist? No, I'm not right. I know nothing absolutely about that. But I do appreciate the fact they are challenging the orthodoxy. And I think bit by bit, they are kind of, because it's not only empirical evidence, it's also, we have to get into the semiology with Deleuze and Guattari. It's also about sense and how they are, kind of fighting to bring certain ideas, notions, this is science, no, empirical notions, let's not say concepts, but they are trying to push the boundaries. So maybe they are wrong, maybe I am a freak, but what I do appreciate is the energy and the devotion to break through the orthodoxy, and so even Deleuze and Guattari in New Plateau have written so much about archaeology, and they just say you keep going back and back and back and back and back, And I think a lot of these people are trying to, Orthodox Christianity, obviously Adam and Eve, etc., but that same kind of mindset was taken over by Orthodox laic archaeology, stating that, the world begins 10,000, civilization begins 6,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, but based on empirical facts, Graham Hancock, but not only him, a lot of other people, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey is carbon dated as being at least 4,000 years before. So they're challenging the orthodoxy. It's like Nicolas de Cusa, who is challenging the Catholic Church and saying, maybe philosophy can belong to the idiot. We did a podcast on this. The common person, that poor, humble worker, that lazy person like me that dares to watch Joe Rogan because we are idiots, basically. But that's already happening throughout Christianity. And it takes centuries and centuries and centuries, and then René Descartes becomes the idiot. And the idiot, what does he say? I know nothing. I have to start from zero. After all of these millennia and centuries of church and learning, I know zero about ontology. Why do I exist? I am starting from zero. And I, as an idiot, as a lazy, what do we say? Intellectual person, I'm going to start from zero and close myself in my room, and I'm going to talk to the demon, and I'm going to suffer and sweat, and then I'm going to find out why I exist, and then cogito ergo sum, that comes from Descartes. So I don't want to go too much further into this. Reza Giorgiani, very briefly, I mentioned him, I think, for 2 or 3 minutes in a video. I watched some podcasts and I said, well, this guy seems really weird. And then I read a little bit about his history, that he grew up in New York and New Jersey and was funding, somehow ended up in government funding programs for overthrowing the Iranian government. And I was like, wow, this guy's completely weird. I mean, he's crazy, and hence my interest, because I repeat again, look on all of the lectures on Deleuze and art, Cézanne, Van Gogh, in the 18th century, we're down there, 20 hours a day painting. Van Gogh would move his axle with the sun until it was bleeding. His hands were bleeding because he had to do his painting moving with the sun. And they were always making fun of the dandies in Paris, the artists, the Toulouse-Lautrecs, dressed in ties and in high society and painting the women in the opera and all the money and all the... No. Cézanne and Deleuze were absolutely Deleuze. Sorry, telephone call there. Cézanne, Van Gogh. You choose that, but they were idiots. No, they were complete and total idiots. They weren't those cultured people up there, making money and painting in front of people and showing how talented they were. For them, that was a question of life or death, especially for Van Gogh. We know that. And that, by my definition, is a true artist. So I'm not saying anything good or bad. I don't even remember the name, Giorgiani. Who gives a fuck? He said some really weird stuff, and I said maybe one could excavate something interesting. Deleuze always said, you go into other fields, and in science, for example, science cannot produce concepts. That's the work of philosophy. I talked about that last night. The other night, I don't remember when I was on here last, but black holes, white walls, those are concepts from Deleuze, where he is borrowing blocks or notions or empirical groups. He's extracting that, and then he's making that into a concept, So maybe Giorgiani was saying some weird shit, and I just appreciated the fact that, this guy doesn't give a fuck about dogma. He's saying strange stuff. Specifically, if I have to defend myself, which I don't have to do, he was referring to a book, saying that... I can't remember the name, but in archaeology, you can go back millions of years and still find remnants of concrete, remnants of civilization. So what do I think? I think Deleuze, Guattari, they said you can go back and back and back and back and back in time and dig, and you're going to find something. So where's that limit? Do I know? No. Does anyone know? No. But this dude was like, well, yeah, that's kind of obvious because in the future they will discover time travel, and therefore obviously maybe a couple of times they shot themselves back like 20 million years, built a house and came back home and left it, and therefore it got sedimented in the strata, like totally absolutely weird shit. I don't believe in that. No one believes in that, and obviously any Deleuzian knows that it's just a terrible concept of time travel we still have today. Yesterday I talked about our concept of the multiverse, which Leibniz, was well aware of, I guess 300, 400 years ago now. For Deleuze, we are always in a time machine in every single moment, because the present is simply the pure contraction of the past and all of its singularities, going all the way down to the beginning of everything, no? So everything we do every day, we are in a time machine. So obviously this whole notion, as Giorgiani believes and everyone believes today, that we can make a time machine and go back. If you're a Deleuzian, if you're a Bergsonian, you know that that's absurd, because the past is dilated matter. So even if you found a way to go back 2,000 years, maybe you would have to research this and think, and maybe you'll go into some place where matter is completely dilated, and then like there's just like matter floating everywhere if you go back 50 years or whatever. But that's the cone of Henri Bergson. Today, right now, all matter, everything is matter only because it is the most contracted state of memory of the past. Okay, so I am completely ignorant and intellectually lazy. I do agree with that, but at the same time, I would defend myself saying some of these concepts you could explain pretty easily without having to go quote 2,000 fucking million Simondons, etc. You can live it. You can live it, and there's a big difference between culture and living. And I hope to get on to a podcast when we're going to be talking about Jean-Luc Godard in the war in Bosnia, and the difference between culture, the rule, and lived art as living, the exception. And that will be indeed, I hope, a very interesting podcast. So our friend is saying that I will not take a half an hour to listen to a very well-researched essay on a topic which conclusions you may not agree, but which builds a good case for itself. Once again, I did not understand the sense of the whole thing in the first place, and I will go and watch it, absolutely. I mean, no problem. It's just I've met Tony Negri many times before his death. I've met Francesco Berardi many times. I believe Berardi is still alive. But okay, no, I will watch it, and I hope it makes a very believable case. But my point here is to get on from this and get into something much more rich, in which we talk about like reality and actual historical positions from real philosophers. And also he mentioned that I'm a fan of Reza Giorgiani's, and I am not a fan of Eric Allier's. How can you even respond to that kind of thing? I mean, no response. I agree that Deleuze encourages philosophers to take new lines of flight, but not those that lead to a black hole. Buddy, if you want to know what a real black hole is, I can explain it to you. Trust me, if I show a glimpse of interest in something different, it is not necessarily a black hole. But obviously this is social media, the limits of not knowing people of just pure judgment, based on whatever. So, but then he answers me in French, which is supposed to be the most condemning thing, I believe. Philosophie qui n'attriste personne. This is a quote from Gilles Deleuze sent to me, demonstrating that I am, garbage or whatever. Une philosophie qui n'attriste personne. Et au contraire, personne n'est pas en philosophie. Elle sert à nuire à la bêtise. Elle fait de la bêtise quelque chose de honteux. This would be a quote apparently against me from Nietzsche and philosophy. A philosophy which saddens no one and does not contradict anyone is not a philosophy. No shit. It serves to harm stupidity. And apparently here I am the stupid person because I occasionally watch archaeological podcasts on the Joe Rogan show. And I dared to watch something by I don't remember his name anymore. What the fuck? What's the guy's name? Giorgiani. Okay, it serves to harm stupidity. It makes stupidity something shameful. So apparently I am something very shameful, but we know that such is life, and like I said, you guys will make your decision if I'm shameful or not shameful. It's not my business. I, like all of you, we all have problems. We all have to go forward. We all have our interests. We are not the same. I hope and believe that we would want to do something new. We may make errors, etc., etc. So the thing kind of freaks me out. Anyway, the real point I want to do, and this is our big detour here, and hopefully I'll be a little bit faster, is I'm opening up a quick citation and interview with qualified philosophers who actually studied with Gilles Deleuze, who talk about Deleuze's relationship with the philosophy of Karl Marx, and it's in French, but we will translate all relevant points. And the first question, let's run through this. I wasted way too much time answering that question. I shouldn't have spent more than a second, but unfortunately, I want to be transparent. I don't want to ignore people. I don't want to insult people. You decide. No, it's all up to you. It's not up to me. I can do what I can do. You be the judges. Not my problem. So the first question. This is an article, let's see, from 1972. This is an interview with Isabelle Garot. And I do want you to actually know a little bit about the people who are talking here, because you will know that they are people that are quite qualified. So I am going to try very quickly to see if I can copy and paste this into my Word thing here. Not a chance. So we are talking right now with Isabelle Garot. And let's see if we can get that up and running for you, because as always, I encourage you to investigate who is speaking, and not just get lost in simple words, arguments, discussions, blah, blah, blah. And so if we can see that, what does it say? Isabelle Garot, born in 1963 in Saint-Germain-en-Laye, is a French philosopher, author of several books and numerous articles devoted to, I don't know why, there we go, to Karl Marx, Marxist analysis of the contemporary world, and critical interventions in the fields of ideas. So, all I want to give to you from here is this name. I am going to see if I can erase the rest, but just keep in mind, go to Wikipedia, whatever site, go and see who is talking. This is a highly qualified person that has written books about Foucault, Deleuze, Guattari, and Karl Marx. So, let's see if we can get this up. The question is, comment décririez-vous le rapport de Deleuze à Marx et au marxisme avant sa rencontre avec Guattari? Therefore, the question says, we're asking Isabelle Guerrero, how would you describe the relationship between Deleuze and the philosophy of Karl Marx and Marxism itself before his encounter with Pierre Félix Guattari? The answer by Isabelle Guerrero. Le jeune Deleuze n'a jamais été tenté par une forme d'engagement militant. Young Deleuze was never in favor of military engagements. Il se relève de sa prime jeunesse un théoricien précoce et ambitieux, passionné pour dessous par Sartre, lecture fervente de Bergson, qui est pourtant identifié alors au spiritualisme universitaire le plus conservateur, entreprenant très tôt une critique de la famille et de l'État. And I'm going to make this whole paragraph a lot easier for English speakers. And we will take a quick look at Gilles Deleuze. Deleuze's youth and his relationship to Marx. And once again, I repeat, I'm not saying anything. You can believe whatever you want to believe. All you can do is give you information that can lead you this way or that way, left and right. No insults, no attacks, no personal attacks. I repeat, I am 100% sure that you guys will do much, much better than me on this stuff. So, fuck, hang on. Sorry, be patient. I just copy-pasted the French and not the English. Hang on. That's weird. Hang on. Let's try again. Hop. Hop. And I understand why. Hang on, because I don't have an Apple mouse. There we go. That should be better. And I need an Apple trackpad. So, no, not full screen. Excusez-moi. No. What? No. Shit. This is horrible. Hang on. How do I get out of this full screen mode? No. Disaster. Hang on. Let's hit the green button. Everything is exploding. And we even lost our Word document, which is unusual. Hang on, let's see if we can get back to OBS. Who's doing all kinds of weird stuff? Oh, what did I do? What a bleeping disaster. But maybe it's bad karma. Oh, let me see if we can fix this. Oh, Mac, I hate you, Mac. Option. Hang on. 1 second, guys. Be patient with me. Why did I go back to Mac? What was I thinking? OBS, Mac, exit, full screen. How to get out of full screen? Move your mouse over the cursor all the way to the top of the screen. Wait for the menu bars to pop down and then press the green button. Yeah, hello, I did that. Top of the screen. Green button. Doesn't seem to have changed anything. What a bloody mess. Here. I get it. Okay, dudes, we're back. Let's see if we can pick up pages again. Oh, super. So let's pick it up. The young Deleuze was never tempted by any form of military commitment. From his early youth, he revealed himself to be a precocious and ambitious theoretician. Passionate, then disappointed by Sartre, a fervent reader of Bergson, who is nevertheless identified with the most conservative academic spiritualism, very early undertaking a critique of the family and of the state. So, like I said, yesterday or the other day, whatever, the last podcast, Deleuze picked up Bergson, who was considered to be very démodé, out of fashion, and just kind of a weirdo at that time. We must admit that such an intellectual orientation is from the outset political. So that means, obviously, from his youth, rejecting any form of militancy. Obviously, communism, Marxism, etc., and embracing Bergson is already in itself kind of a political intention or statement. So, at the same time, if it is legitimate to qualify it in this way, it must immediately be clarified that this policy relates to completely different modality than membership in an organization. It is this other path of politics, this theoretical modality of politics, and in return this singular politicization of philosophy that Deleuze will open up and explore from this moment on through the development of a work, scholarly and offbeat, both academic and rebellious. So let's just say at this point, what do we know? Deleuze was kind of a rebel, and it was very famous. Freud and Marx were all of the fashion at the time, and that was just simply not Gilles Deleuze. That was not what he was interested in, which is perfectly normal, and demonstrates that he was willing and had the courage to be different. So, and always keep in mind, you always have to understand the person who's speaking. So Isabelle Garon has wrote a lot, and obviously is worthy of great respect on Marxism, but how much does she really know about Gilles Deleuze and his philosophy is a whole other question. So always keep in mind the person that is talking, no? That is fundamental. So I'm going to try and translate another thing here. We're going to go from French to English. Let's see very quickly. There we go. And I think this should be very interesting. Let's get rid of this terrible stuff, black goo from Google. It's the black goo. And then we're going to paste, okay, and we're going to say, to put it succinctly, I hope you can all see that, it is therefore a certain relationship to communism which involves the refusal of commitment, but also the development of a critical sensitivity, indisputably left-wing. Obviously, Deleuze has always defined himself as a left-wing person, which precedes and induces the meeting of Marx and Marxism. So this precedes his interest in Marx, let's say by nature, being left-wing. This obviously preceded his encounter, and his induces a kind of encounter with Marx and Marxism in Deleuze, because we must remember that meeting Marx at this time is first of all meeting communist culture, which embraces it and ensures its dissemination in a specific mode. So, very simply, in the times we all know, despite my incredibly grave cultural laziness, that Deleuze grew up in Paris, and when the Nazis conquered Paris, Gilles Deleuze's father became a Nazi, the Vichy regime. He became a Nazi collaborator, let's say. Deleuze was incredibly humiliated and embarrassed by his father's commitment or collaboration with the Nazi Party. And Deleuze was taken during the years of the war to the west coast of France, to kind of like these old, how would you call them, like resort vacation places on the beach. And there are original texts by Deleuze who talks about how surreal it was, because he was already suffering from tuberculosis in that time. And there was kind of this surreal world where, you know, all of the families sent from Paris their families and just hoped that, like, on the beach, you know, they would be safe. And who remained became a Nazi collaborator. And there are articles where he discusses the surreal nature of this world, no? Where you're like on the beach, you think you're on vacation, but you know, all kinds of horrible things are happening at the same time. So obviously, she says, Marx is, at that epoch era, 100% committed, related to communist culture. And we all know that Marx comes before. Marx, yes, of course, did cite communism, but Marx did come before what happened later on in many other countries, specifically Russia and China, and communism. But Marx was 100% associated with communism itself. And I don't think it's any too different today, meaning that the philosophy of Marx and his critique of capitalism was just not even considered, it was just subsumed. Karl Marx is communism, no? Which I don't believe in, but that's the way it is, and therefore, which embraces and ensures its dissemination in a specific mode, meaning that at that time, people were teaching Marx 100% through communist rhetoric. So this promotion, mainly on the side of the Communist Party, obviously, but also other currents of the left to a lesser degree, is itself complex and contradictory, and I devote part of my book to it. If Marx is a reference, his works are yet rarely read in full. This is one of the first big points. Forget it. Like, we're all Marx here, like, who has read all the books? Nothing. Nobody. It's extremely rare that you have. I do know a few people, but very rare. So it's complex and contradictory, and I devote part of my book to it. If Marx is a reference, his works are yet rarely read in full, and their publication took place slowly, becoming more systematic only at the beginning of the 1970s, okay? So reinforcing her point, post-war France, when we had the Soviet Union, which is conquering all of East Europe, the actual writings, published writings of Marx that were available were very few. So therefore, you were looking through a very, very small lens to the full opera and works of Karl Marx. You know, only certain small things, Das Kapital for sure. You're looking at a very, very small range of his works. And you're just completely associated 100% with Russia, with Mao, with Stalin, with Czechoslovakia, etc., etc. So everything led to making the name of Marx a badge, a symbol, much more than the proper name of the author of a difficult and vast work. So Marx, in that time, and once again, I repeat, I am so intellectually lazy and stupid, etc., etc., but I can tell you for sure that times change, and things are understood differently in different times. And therefore, in those times, Karl Marx was kind of considered, like in the 90s and 80s, like a Che Guevara, maybe even today. Who knows the full history of Che? I spent a lot of time in his mausoleum in the museum trying to learn what I could. But Che is a T-shirt. He's an icon of la révolution, no? The revolution. But how much do we know about Che's writings? How much do we know? Okay, Che with Fidel conquered Cuba. Great, but do we understand why Fidel and Che Guevara argued when they had to set up the government of Cuba? And Che Guevara told Fidel Castro, I do not believe in your vision. I believe in a more Marxist vision of the means of production of Cuba. No, do we know anything about that? I doubt it. If you do, you let me know. But that's the point. I mean, even Fidel is a T-shirt, is a symbol. He's an icon. Che Guevara, he's a symbol. You put him on the J, and it's hasta la revolución. But how much do we really know about Che Guevara? Do we know that he was a doctor? Do we know that about his birth? Do we know that he was Argentinian? Do we know that he had a very, very well-known sweet spot for women? Do we know he graduated as a doctor? Do we know that you know, and that's the point which she is saying here. Marx, in those years, in post-war France, in the intellectual circles, Marx was just more of a symbol, and no one had read the complete opera because the complete work of Marx had not even been fully published at that point. It took until at least 1970. So you guys decide. I'm just trying to. This is a source who should be respected and very reliable. So finally, Deleuze is also situated in relation to this other pole, which is the University of the Faculty of Philosophy. In this context, Marx is not present, and his mention can precisely make it possible to construct an original intellectual path there. So once again, in this period, everything has a context, no? So Gilles Deleuze is in a university, which is stated here that Marx doesn't even exist in where he's working. We all just don't grow up and get bing bang boomed into Harvard and we're all pampered super philosophers, no? We have to work our way up the ladder, and we may find our places that are difficult, that are hostile, where you can't talk about certain things. That's life for everybody. Marx is not present, as mentioned, can precisely make it possible to construct an original intellectual path there. So once again, even more reinforcing the point, is that in the context of this university where Marx did not even exist, she's saying that one in Deleuze's position could have made an original intellectual path teaching about Karl Marx in this university where no one knew anything about Karl Marx. Then, for all these reasons which have nothing to do with an early strategy, meaning Deleuze was not thinking about these things, no, she's just giving us a context, but which emerged from an intellectual biography rooted in the history that nourishes it. Deleuze will approach Marx and Marxism in a manner that is both relatively late and powerfully original. So, let me check if that is the end of her answer, which is already very, very interesting. No, I think we're going to go a little bit further here. Oh, guys, 20 more minutes and we're going to shut this down. I know everyone hates long podcasts. So let's get rid of this. Not even remotely close. Be patient. Hang on. Let me go back, and this is going to be, I'm going to try and copy paste. There we go. Here we are. A little bit long, but so personally, I don't know about you, but I like this text. I find it very, very rich and interesting, even if it might just be a presupposition, because let's see if that is correct. Il est frappant, c'est ça, il est frappant. So, it is striking that the first mention of Marx is found in a book devoted to Nietzsche, Nietzschean philosophy, which appeared in 1962. But this book takes up and develops a much older intuition that we encounter in the account that Deleuze had dedicated in 1954 to the work of his teacher Jean Hippolyte. Hippolyte's book, Logic and Existence, is devoted to Hegelian logic. In this reading note, Deleuze addresses the question of dialectic, and more precisely that of contradiction, suggesting that this could be less than difference. However, in Hegelian logic, difference is a subordinate moment in the process which leads to the emergence of the contradiction, characterizing the thing itself. So we've been to this just very quickly. We know that Deleuze obviously wants to reduce difference to difference itself. While Hegel is using what you could call difference in, as Bergson says, a lot easier to understand in a negative sense, meaning the difference between one object and another is can be understood as a lack. A difference essentially as a lack leading to the true nature or notion of an object. So you get into this with Deleuze and Bergson. Not too hard to figure out there, no? And the perfect tree is green. I see a white tree, therefore it lacks being green, therefore it is a sick tree. No, that's the use of difference as not as affirmation. No, maybe that white fucking tree is 100 times more perfect and beautiful than the green tree, but that's not affirmation. That's a use of difference as negation. Classic Bergson, classic Deleuze. However, in Hegelian logic, difference is a subordinate movement in the process which leads to the emergence of the contradiction, characterizing the thing itself. This technical remark, and at first glance without political stakes, is in reality a first intervention in the then politically overdetermined debate which concerns Hegel, and especially between Hegel and Marx, a question addressed more head-on by Althusser. For his part, it is laterally that Deleuze enters in this debate, notably via this project of a confrontation with the Hegelian and Marxian dialectic, which he will later clarify. So, point here is that at this point in French politics, there's no political stakes whatsoever in these discussions between Marx and Hegel, and understandably so. I mean, if and we'll get on to materialism, I mean, if you go into a factory and you want to defend factory workers' rights, are you going to start citing like, well, Hegel, has defined difference as a negative, and therefore your identity as a worker is... Come on, let's be serious. The world is concrete. it's pragmatic. I mean, that was just these debates. Did Marx reverse, Hegelian dialecticism? You can, as a philosopher, you can write fucking 200,000 books your whole life and be proud of yourself, and you may figure it out, you may not. It depends on how good you are. But the point here is, in that period, Marxism as a political party, as a concrete political existence, did not give two fucks. The real question was, how do we give equality to workers? How do we guarantee the pay for workers? How do we use Marx's basic laws to guarantee that workers will be compensated well? Operaismo, workerism in Italy. In the 70s, you had tons of workers. They refused to give their knowledge to the technical machines because, they correctly said, if we give all of our knowledge to the machines and they become not algorithms like today, but they become a bunch of simple codes that, these primitive machines would operate, we're all going to be fired, no? So they were striking and saying, we ain't going to give these machines our knowledge because, we are going to be completely eliminated. And all of that goes back and maybe in an upcoming podcast, we can do just some of the very simple laws of Marx, some of which are no longer relevant, but everything changes. Others of which are still 100% relevant. So if we would just look like at a top 10 of very simple economical principles by Karl Marx, the tendency of saturation, for example, nothing more relevant than that. The tendency of the capitalist to profit and reduce wages of the worker, 100% relevant today. What else comes to mind? The tendency in a free market of competition to lead one capitalist to defeat another capitalist means that the defeated capitalist will give to the winning capitalists both his products and his workforce, and therefore you create what's called a reserve force of work, meaning that the capitalist that wins will have 4 times the amount of worker he needs, and therefore he can go even further and exploit the workers even more and say, I'm going to pay you a quarter of what I paid you before. And if you say why, you'll say why, because there's 4,000 workers that'll take your place in 30 seconds if you don't say yes. No? Okay, calm down, I'll take it. So a lot of Marxist stuff, just very simple analysis of how the capitalist system works, is still 100% applicable and valuable today. Yesterday I was bitching about, seeing everyone saying that, the United States is becoming communist, Marxist, communist. No, I'm not going to get into it, but the only person that said it correctly, and I think in the first podcast of this Disarticulation series, I showed a really funny interview between Slavoj Žižek and Bernie Sanders, in which in the end Bernie Sanders was just kind of like, took it all as a joke and kind of took off. But what Bernie Sanders said is that the real risk of the USA is it's becoming an oligarchy, and I'm not going to get into it now. Go on Wikipedia, go looking for the definitions, because oligarchies and fascism are absolutely 100% historically connected. Mussolini, huge problem. You make a pact between the government and the oligarchs, no? What am I called? I'm a simple Russian, I'm a simple idiot because I'm a Russian apologist, according to our commentator friend. Russia has the same risk, no? That means you are leaving these massive, huge companies that deal with technology, with military arms, and they're supposed to have a pact with the government, but in reality, what oligarchy has always led to is the oligarchs that are running the show, no? And not the government itself. So this is why it's so important to go over all of this stuff. So let's keep going. So, like right here, we know that Deleuze picks up on Marx kind of late in the presence of Marx, Karl Marx, in French intellectual society, and he does it primarily through his critique of Hegel and the Marxian dialectic, which apparently in those times went hand in hand, obviously, because Marx frequently mentioned Hegel and mentioned his reversal, blah, blah, blah. So the important point here is that Deleuze comes very, very late to Marxism, and in a peripheral way. And the point up into here, we're going to take a 2-minute break. I'll be back. We're going to go on. I don't know why, so everyone can suffer a little bit more. We'll go a little bit further into this, at least with this first response by Isabelle Garot, and hopefully tomorrow, if I'm alive, we'll go into Anne Sauvignargues, another student of Deleuze, another person who is there, who knows things, no? I'll resist on the comment I was about to make, but so the point up into here, Gilles Deleuze, very young, thank you very much, from a young age suffered tuberculosis, lived kind of a sad life in Paris, with the coming of the war. He fled outside of the war, to the beaches on the Atlantic coast. His father was notably collaborated with the Nazi Party. Deleuze was very embarrassed of this. He had already developed a very grave case of tuberculosis. Deleuze was absolutely not a militant in any way, shape, or form, and this is while Marxism had his foothold in French culture, no? Because immediately post-war, obviously, as the Russian, I don't know what I am, Russian demon or whatever. Obviously, the Soviet Union had played such a huge role in the liberation of Europe that, it became a huge part of intellectual discourse. But Deleuze was very wary, not interested in any kind of, he was just kind of like a nerdy kid who was already sick, and he was just wanted to read his Henri Bergson, no? And he found Bergson so fascinating, So, as we will find out later, that is completely different from Pierre-Félix Guattari, who was militant from the very beginning, and Pierre-Félix was someone ready to go to the barricades and, throw rocks and set fires. But this is not Gilles Deleuze, Absolutely not. Read the biography in no way possible. And then even the first confrontations between Deleuze and Marx were very peripheral, and that was already a period in which Marx was not so much in fashion anymore in France. We know that Marx's opera was fully printed around 1970, and for sure Nietzsche's work on Deleuze's work on Nietzsche comes a lot earlier. And he just kind of starts off with Marx in a very, very peripheral way, primarily through Hegel. So I'm sure I've bored you all to death. If anyone is watching us, we are going to take a 2-minute cigarette break, and we'll be right back so we can at least finish, and we're not so far away, the part by Isabel Gatto. And once again, my point here is, in life, there are people that you can trust, and there are people you should be wary of, you know? And sometimes you should know better. But I'm not going to get into that anymore. Quick break. Be back in 1 minute. Let's stick my webcam on something disgusting here. That's my disgusting floor. Oh my goodness. Be back in 2 minutes. Okay. Oh my God, what did I do to my cigarette? Okay. So guys, I'm back. Sorry about that. Let's try and finish this up really quick with Isabella. Oh shit. 2 more paragraphs and we're done, huh? I'm going to translate this for us. Oh my goodness. Okay, here we go. We're ready to go. If I can find pages, thank you, pages. Here we go. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. And here we are. So after this first episode, and we just saw that episode was Deleuze on his book on Nietzsche, who was very tentatively talking about Marx, but primarily through Hegel. After this first episode, the resumption of the dialectical question and the first mention of the name of Marx took place in 1962 in a book devoted to the fierce opponent of Hegelianism, Nietzsche, and which only approaches Marx as an apparently secondary author. However, the Deleuzian reading of Nietzsche very precisely envelops and specifies a critical relationship with Marx, which gives all its propulsive force to the Nietzschean reference and its actualization. Here again, but I'm just going to call a quick timeout. I do not want to be repetitive, but right now we should already understand that Deleuze is not going to be writing, his last work is not going to be the grandeur of Marx. I mean, how can, I'm intellectually lazy, I'm a total imbecile, but anyone that reads this, you should get it. I mean, my God, what, fuck it. Let's go on. Which gives all its propulsive force to the Nietzschean reference and its actualization. Here again, it is indeed a political approach in the broad sense of this term, which leads Deleuze to undertake the promotion of an author like Nietzsche, and Foucault will join him, whose emancipatory aims are hardly obvious. So much so that Deleuze is keen to point out that the introduction of Nietzsche into France was carried out by the left and not the right. So once again, the whole point is here. I'm going to be a little bit repetitive because, you have to understand the context of things in which they're happening and the political context, and once again, here we go. Deleuze is keen. There are interviews. I go on YouTube and watch the interviews with Claire Parnet in YouTube. You can find the whole ABC there where Deleuze talks in an interview about Nietzsche, his death, his publications, which were done by Elizabeth, his sister to the National Socialist Party, and this whole political path of people today just, we live in this completely empty plateau of capitalist marketing culture in which we just think, oh fuck, a book pops up and, oh wow, if I write a book, it's going to be canon. Oh wow, if I were painting out, no, like we don't even know half of the shit that happened over history. Everything has this incredibly crazy zigzag path, and it's politicized. Books disappear, burned here, authors are here. This is the whole fun thing about Leibniz. Leibniz, who he was smarter than Spinoza. Spinoza died when he was 40 years old, but Leibniz was part of the official church in Germany at the time, so that's why Deleuze always said that the most interesting things from Leibniz were his letters. Why? Because his letters were private. If the king, if the priest of the royal family ever read his letters, Leibniz would have been hung and burned in a public square, But Leibniz understood very well, and that's why he had this beautiful idea, my webcam can't do it, of the pyramid. And like when I write something, I have to choose which level of the pyramid I'm writing about this on. Who am I writing to? Am I writing to the king of Germany? So if I'm writing to the king of Germany, I'm going to say all the correct things. Otherwise, I'm out of a job and they might even kill me. Am I writing to the priest of the king of the kingdom of Germany in this epoch? No, I have to write it another way. I have to be very, very careful of what I'm saying. And then you go down all of these levels, and maybe in those lower levels, who am I writing to? I'm writing a letter to, I don't know, a young writer in Austria. Okay, so that's when Leibniz says, I'm free to write what I really think, no? So the whole history it's heavily politicized, and that's why here we have Nietzsche was brought into France by the left wing and not the right wing, which is curious because we would all think the contrary, that Nietzsche had been conquered by the National Socialist Party, and therefore Nietzsche was the icon of National Socialism. But that is to say, through the revolutionary syndicalism of Charles Enlert and Henri Albert, who in fact made the means of a virulent but somewhat naive and approximate critique of Marx. So once again, the first thing I want to say here, and one last paragraph and we're done, hats off to Isabel, because this is a true intellectual who's not insulting and like, no, I mean, she's a Marxist, she's a hardcore Marxist, and from her perspective as a Marxist, she's giving what I think is just because she would know better than me. I mean, what the hell? I mean, hats off to her. I mean, this is just, it's just an interview, but her answer is great. And let's check in really, really quickly so we can like actually understand things and not just shoot opinions around everywhere, insult other people. Substantially what she's saying is a Marxist historian, that Marx was brought into post-war France by Charles Enlert. Well, let's see if we can find this in English. No, this is a pretty obscure reference today. This is Charles Philippe Théodore Enlert, La jeunesse de Nietzsche. Born in 1866 in Strasbourg, died in April 1933 in Malesherbes, Loiret. I apologize, I might have been mistaken before and said he brought Marx. He brought Nietzsche into French contemporary intellectual discourse. He was a German-French and taught at the Sorbonne from 1926 to 1933, and he's considered one of the founding fathers of German as an advanced discipline in France. So one of the first reasons that, and once again, I encourage us all, think about it. We're saying that the principal reason that Friedrich Nietzsche, this is not the time of TikTok in which, you know, it takes time, things have to be published, print. This is not like YouTube world, TikTok world. No, this is not Logan Paul world here, no? These are other times, and it takes time for things to penetrate from one place to another. Now, look at the movement of philosophy. We're in 2024. According to Deleuze, we have Greece, essentially, maybe a little bit of Stoicism, maybe a little bit in Sicily, southern Italy. Then we have the Ice Age, which is the Christian Church, which goes up until Descartes in France in the 1600s. And then Spinoza in Holland, and then Germany takes it over for 200, 300 years, and then it moves to France in the 20th century, and that's it. It's not like we're on TikTok and we just swipe and, you know, no. Philosophy, according to Deleuze, it takes centuries for things to move from one place for another. Obviously, in the early 1900s, things were accelerating, but let's keep into account, as is written here, that the introduction to Nietzsche in France came pre-Second World War, 1933, from Charles Enlert, who was French, but he was from a part of France close to Germany, and absolutely pro-German. And then At the same time, we have Henri Albert. Henri Albert. Henri Albert, son vrai nom, what a huge surprise, Henri Albert Hogg, and the last name is not French, and he was born in 1869, where in Niederbronn, close to Strasbourg, so big surprise. We have Charles Henler and Henri Albert, born in two different times, but they both are absolutely pro-German. They are French, pro-German. Henri Albert was a translator of Friedrich Nietzsche. So once again, the point here is that the introduction of the thought of Nietzsche into France was not like today, not like TikTok. The two primary people that did the actual translation work, and in the case of Henler, went to the Sorbonne, the most prestigious university, and taught Nietzsche to the French intellectuals. These are the primary responsible people for doing this. And let's finish up right here because it's super late, and tomorrow, if we're still around, we will do the part with Anne Savargnag. This is the last part with Isabelle. Let's see what happens. Jose Collet. Almost there. Things miraculously on our 100% Apple system are working, which is odd. This should be it. This is the last part of her answer. Here we go. Are we still even streaming? Yes. We can consider that the singularity of Deleuze in his relationship to Marx is really constructed at this moment, even if it is not limited to the thesis of this book. We're talking, I believe, about Nietzsche and philosophy. At the moment of this conjunction between a political approach, which remains at the background, but remains a constant, and the production of an innovative philosophy which promotes, in a way, as strategic as fundamental, authors who were heterodox. So once again, as we saw before, Nietzsche in those times, hard to believe, because today we live in the plateau where everything is accessible on Amazon. In those times, Nietzsche was kind of still a rarity, you know. It was introduced principally into French thought, and before that it was very, very foreign by our two aforementioned friends from Strasbourg. And it took a long time for that to seep in and soak in to the intelligentsia, and at that point Deleuze, not dissimilar to his fixation with Bergson, picked up on Nietzsche, who was not at all popular at that time, and at the same time Karl Marx was kind of fading out of popularity. So as we said, which promotes, in a way, as strategic as fundamental, authors who were then, that means then, heterodox, forgotten, as with Bergson, forgotten or rejected outside of the university. God forgive me that I watched two phrases on Giorgiani because he's rejected. No? Whatever. Marx is one of these authors, but in a highly paradoxical way, because at the same time, he's also an official author in the eyes of Deleuze, insofar as he is carried by a political current then powerful and central in life French politics, the Communist Party. So we look at the dates. I think she is saying that Marx is kind of just this abstract icon mixed with Stalinism, essentially. Communism as interpreted as Stalinism until about the 1970s, until all of the texts come out with Marx and Engels, etc., etc. But at that time, that had been subsumed by the Communist Party in France, as it was in Italy. In the 1970s, in the 1980s in Italy, in France, it wasn't too different. The Communist Party was the most voted for party because people, wanted equality for workers, no? So I'm a horrible, terrible, simp, Russian apologist, etc., etc. But when the left actually believed in workers in those 20 years, the politicians were fighting violently for workers' rights. And why? Why is that so terrible? I mean, look at today. The inflation we have is insane. Workers have absolutely no power whatsoever today. Classic Karl Marx is he believes in the creativity of the proletariat, the working party. And so, hey, big surprise, huh? We all in the 70s and 80s, we believed in communism. We did not believe, even if the Communist Party, the rhetoric was Stalin, because Stalin was still present. No. The whole idea was equality for workers, fair earnings for workers, and Marx sets down all the rules for that. So we have. So the point here is, in her opinion, she's saying that Deleuze kind of, sort of. He wasn't really substantial. Deleuze was never really substantially interested in Karl Marx, but at that particular time, given that, in her opinion, that Deleuze's vision from the get-go was kind of political, no? There was a political sense to refusing to be a militant and being Bergsonist, no? There was already something inherently political in that, if tomorrow, all my buddies, all 200 of them, say we're going tomorrow to protest, this or that. We're going to protest the war here, there. And that's the famous Bartleby from Deleuze. I don't want to, no, I'm not going to do that. Hey guys, let's, tomorrow we're going to the plaza, and we've got all of our, Palestinian t-shirts and flags, and, we're going to go make a big protest, no? What I do is, as we've seen on the podcast, is every often as I can, I donate X amount of money to the Palestinian people, and I pray that which I donate actually gets there through official United Nations, organisms or websites, and I just pray that whatever I give could maybe be, I don't even fucking know, a piece of bread for some poor kid, no, but if I go into the plaza, and I don't think Deleuze is thinking is too far from this, if I go out there and jump up and down, we're going to drink our beers, and yeah, Palestine, yeah, awesome, the revolution, we're going to defeat, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, what do you accomplish? You accomplish absolutely fucking nothing. You either go there, buy Kalashnikov and fight for them. If that's not your thing, donate €20 a month to the Palestinian population. Donate 10, donate 50, donate 100, donate 500, donate 5, whatever. but at least you're doing something. We hope, because God knows what happens, to these kinds of things. But I think that's not too far from Deleuzian thinking. No, it's like practical. If I go and protest, okay, yeah, but what's it gonna cost? If I can just do an incredibly small thing, if I can like give one fucking toy to some poor girl, in Palestine, living in that absolute utter hell where they're all starving to death, I mean, it doesn't even make me happy. I just say, fuck, at least, if we're human, we would all do that, no? So, but obviously, like, I'm a Russian apologist, so obviously, I'm an apologist for the genocide carried out by the Palestinians, even if all of the statistics everywhere say that more than 30,000 Palestinians are dead, most of them women, children. We all know the reason why. But once again, I'm a simple apologist. I don't know. These are things people say about me, and good for you all, huh? Really good for you. I hope you sleep with a good conscience, because I find that completely, totally grotesque. Anyway, but in a highly paradoxical way, at the same time, he is also an official author in the eyes of Deleuze. So as a result, the figure of Marx in Deleuze remains marked by great ambivalence, and I do agree with this 100%. Not to prove my point. I repeat, if you want to tell me that you have the proof, that if you have copies of the text or notes that say his last book was on Marx, even after only having listened to 3 paragraphs from this person who's a qualified person who knows, send them to me, and I will admit I'm wrong, and I will shut the show down and go to Patagonia and live a better life. But I agree 100%. Deleuze's relationship with Karl Marx is absolutely ambivalent. However, and this is what we're going to get into hopefully tomorrow, is that the relationship, Deleuze and Guattari's relationship to Marx, will change. But once again, that's because, hang on, let's finish this before I get into my latest rantings, regularly mentioned by Gilles Deleuze without ever being analyzed in such a precise manner. Marx will sometimes be valued, sometimes discredited, or considered obsolete. Deleuze always going against the dominant discourse, wherever it comes from. It must also be clarified that Deleuze will never fall into the dominant anti-Marxism from the mid-1970s, and that he will be one of the rare French intellectuals to oppose the operation of the new philosophers, the difference from Michel Foucault, who will give them his support. Now, I would slightly add something to that. Deleuze's opposition to the new philosophers has little or nothing to do with Marx. It's because let me see if I can quickly dig up the name. Hang on 1 second. I can't remember the name right now, but when Mille Plateau came out and was published in France, it was massacred by everyone, and it was massacred by, obviously, the new French philosophers, and, obviously Deleuze and Guattari were getting old, and the Nouvelle Vague, the new wave was coming in. And Neoplateau was immediately denounced as being horse manure, obviously horse shit, by a French philosopher who might still be around. I'm going to have to dig that up, maybe for tomorrow. I can't remember his name. But Deleuze was also denouncing the fact that at that point, and think about this, in that point that philosophy had been completely corrupted by marketing and the need to make money. So this guy, I think his name is Michel. I'm not gonna find it out. But in the 80s, he was all the rage, and he was selling in supermarkets, and, you know, he had reduced philosophy to some kind of, you know, like today, just, you know, easy stuff which you sell easily and make a lot of money. So the part about Foucault, I repeat, Michel Foucault is someone I've always respected on a lot of planes, but I hear a lot of critiques of Michel Foucault. I'm not sure why, but I honestly don't know enough to talk about Foucault, but I can pretty much say that I'm reasonably convinced, pretty sure that Deleuze's attack against the new philosophers, the famous ones, in the 80s and the 90s was just like his critique of literature, that it was just garbage. It's just garbage. Written to make money. Think about nowadays where you have all these chat GPT apps that'll write your book. I go on YouTube and they're like, look, hey man, put in 20 prompts and you get a 300-page book and you can sell it on Amazon. So it's just an extension of that. So that is that. Anyway, I have gone on for way too long tonight. I did want to respond on this issue on Marx, but just to close things off, I repeat, I mean, anyone can believe what they want. Anything can. It's important. It's the famous in the ABCDR, the famous last interviews with Deleuze with Claire Parnay on YouTube. When she asks him about God, no, I think it's non, c'est deux, en français, c'est deux pour Dieu, dit for Dieu, in English, G for God. And, Deleuze famously said, she said, do you believe in God or not? And he said, well, I'm not going to answer that, but I will refer you to a famous phrase from Pascal, the French mathematician, who said, that's the wrong question. No, he said the right question is, does a man live better believing in God or not believing in God? No. And obviously the answer that Deleuze gave was more or less, he said, yes, the man that believes in God lives better. And after that, we know absolutely nothing. No, zero. But it's the how and the way we want to live. So if you want to do this, you think this, and if that makes you stronger, and I'm all for it, babies, go do it. I repeat, I'm just trying to, in this podcast, give you a lot of an initial context, which we're going to enrich a whole bunch tomorrow, about that whole atmosphere. Because if you don't understand the context of things, you can't understand anything. I mean, the whole issue about the grandeur of Marx comes from Tony Negri, but do you know the history of Tony Negri? An Italian anarchist who was part of the workers' revolution, who was involved in political terrorism, of planting bombs, and then he got locked into prison, and he started reading Spinoza, and then they let him out of prison. He became a politician, but apparently he kept his relations with the radical left, communist terrorist organizations, and they gave a mandate for him in the 80s for arrest while he was a politician. He escaped to France, and he went directly to the apartment of Gilles Deleuze because he had, in prison, he had read about Spinoza, written books about Spinoza. And it's just important. Everyone, you guys decide, because it's famously said that the only person who's ever talked about this grandeur of Marx is Tony Negri, who escaped being hunted by the police. He spent 2 weeks in Deleuze's apartment, and then Deleuze was obviously a nice guy, so he opened the door, let him in, let him live there. Tony, this comes from a biography of Tony. I've been to speeches where he's talked about this. Okay, guys, I'm not inventing this shit here. And then according to Tony Deleuze, he was convinced that it's hearsay. But I repeat, prove it. Fine, I'm an imbecile. Believe it. No problem. If that's going to make you live better, you do it. I'm 100% with you. I'm not judging people. It looks like I'm judging people, but I'm just saying, facts are facts, and we can't overlook facts. We can't. Deleuze is interested with the history of philosophy. Deleuze, like we said yesterday, he bastardized, he sodomized and bastardized Bergson, but I mean, he's not changing the facts. No, the facts always rest the facts, whatever you want to do. So up to you guys. It's, as always, a pleasure. I hope I haven't insulted anyone here, and I truly believe that we do have some good people out there following us, and hope to see you again soon. So take care. Bye-bye.